My brother's destination wedding in Sedona was supposed to be the happiest weekend of our family's lives. I got 34 missed calls in a single night. I assumed it was my mother calling to cry happy tears about the sunset ceremony. When I finally listened to the voicemails, I understood that the Red Rocks of Arizona had witnessed something very different from a fairy tale. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the Tuesday night before everything fell apart, when I was sitting alone in my apartment in Columbus, Ohio, eating leftover pad thai and watching my family lose their minds in real time through Instagram stories. My brother had been dating Serena for 8 months. 8 months. I know couples who take longer to decide on a couch, but my brother, I'll call him by what he's always been to me, which is the one who could do no wrong, had announced an engagement in March and the wedding date in June, and our entire family had simply accepted it. No questions asked. Because that's how it always went with him. He announced, and the rest of us adjusted our lives to accommodate the announcement. Serena came for money. Or at least, that's what she told him. Her father supposedly owned a chain of luxury wellness resorts across the Southwest. She talked about her trust fund the way most people talk about the weather, casually, constantly, as background noise to every conversation. My brother had been working in restaurant management for 6 years and had exactly $11,000 in his savings account. I knew this because he had called me 6 weeks earlier asking if I could spot him until the wedding, when Serena's family would cover everything. I'm a licensed CPA. I've been doing forensic accounting work for a mid-sized firm in Columbus for 4 years. My entire job is to look at numbers and find the story underneath them. And the story underneath my brother's situation had been giving me a headache since February. I hadn't gone to Sedona. I told everyone I had a client audit scheduled that weekend, which was partly true. The fuller truth was that I had sat on my couch 2 weeks before the wedding and done the math out loud on a legal pad and then stared at what I'd written until my coffee went cold. The numbers didn't work. They had never worked. And I didn't want to be standing in the Arizona desert in a bridesmaid dress when the numbers finally stopped pretending. So instead I watched my mother post 67 stories in 48 hours. There she was in a wide-brimmed hat, clinking glasses with Serena's aunt on the terrace of a boutique resort that started at $800 a night. There was my dad, sunburned and grinning, posing in front of a rented Escalade with a "just married" banner that someone had already taped to the back bumper a full day before the ceremony. There was my brother in a linen suit, looking genuinely happy in a way that made my chest hurt because I knew what was coming and I couldn't figure out how to stop it. My phone buzzed at 9:30 on Friday night. My mother: "Sweetheart, the resort is asking for a deposit hold on the rehearsal dinner room. Their system flagged Dad's card. Can you put $1,800 on yours, just for tonight? Dad will transfer it back Sunday when we're home." I read the message twice, the flagged card excuse. I had heard it before, at my cousin's graduation party 3 years ago, at Christmas when my dad's check hadn't cleared yet, at my own birthday dinner 2 years back when somehow I'd ended up paying for a table of 9. There was always a card that wasn't working. There was always a transfer coming on Monday or Sunday or as soon as they got home. I typed back, "Mum, I can't do that. I'm not in Sedona. Call the resort's front desk directly and sort it out with them." Her response came in under 30 seconds. "You are so selfish. Your brother is getting married tomorrow and you couldn't even be here, and now you won't help for one night. This is why he doesn't call you." I put my phone face down on the coffee table and turned on a documentary about deep-sea fish. I told myself the worst of it was over. I told myself I had drawn the line and it would hold. I was spectacularly wrong. I woke up at 2051 in the morning to a sound like distant thunder, which turned out to be my phone vibrating continuously against my nightstand. I grabbed it half asleep and the screen lit up my dark bedroom like a flare. 34 missed calls, 19 voicemails, 56 text messages. The breakdown on the calls: my mother, 11 times. My dad, 9 times. My brother, 7 times. A number I didn't recognize, 6 times. And one call from a contact I hadn't spoken to in 8 months. My aunt, who had explicitly told me at Thanksgiving that I was too negative and needed to be more supportive of the family. I lay in the dark for a moment, just looking at the ceiling. Then I pressed play on my dad's first voicemail. He didn't sound like my father. He sounded like a man who had been hollowed out. His voice was thin and shaking, and I could hear my mother somewhere behind him making a sound I didn't have a word for. Laurie, you need to call me back right now. Something happened. Something is very wrong. Call me. I called him back. He answered before the first ring finished. Dad, what's going on? It's gone. His voice cracked. He's gone. His voice cracked. He's gone. Who's gone? What are you talking about? Serena's father. The whole family. They checked out of the resort at midnight. All of them. Serena, He stopped. I heard him breathe. She left your brother at the after party, Laurie. She said she was getting something from the room. She never came back. I sat up and turned on my lamp. Okay. Is my brother okay? Is he physically okay? He's not hurt. He's in the lobby. My dad's voice broke entirely. The resort is saying our credit cards are declined. All of them. They're saying the room block charges went through on a card that's now being disputed. They're saying we owe $42,000 for the weekend, and if we don't pay by checkout at 11 tomorrow, they're calling the police. I rubbed my face. Dad, that's a civil matter. They can't call the police for a hotel bill. Laurie, that's not everything. He lowered his voice like he didn't want anyone nearby to hear. Your brother. He put up the deposit for the resort 2 months ago. He told me he used his savings, but the resort manager just pulled us into the office and the card on file. The card that has the reservation, that has your name on it. It's a Visa Platinum with a $30,000 limit, and Laurie, I didn't know. Everything in my body went very still. Say that again, I said. The reservation deposit. The contract. The person of record for the room block at the resort is listed as Lara Christine Hafford. He paused. That's you, sweetheart. That's your name. I didn't say anything. I put him on speaker. I opened my laptop. Laurie, are you there? We need you to authorize. The manager is saying if you can confirm the charge, it would hold on, I said. My voice came out level and cold in a way I hadn't planned. I'm checking something. I logged into my credit monitoring account. I hadn't opened it in 6 weeks because my finances ran on autopilot. Direct deposit, automatic payments, nothing unusual. The dashboard took 10 seconds to load, and then a red banner appeared at the top of the page. Alert, new credit inquiry, 47 days ago. Creditor, Copper Canyon Resort and Spa, Sedona, RZ. Type, guarantee account. Authorized amount, $30,000. Below it, another alert. Alert, new account opened 44 days ago. Creditor, First Western Bank Visa Platinum. Balance $28,400. My hands had gone cold. I clicked through to the inquiry details. The application had been submitted from an IP address registered to my parents' home in Dayton. The signature on the guarantee form attached to the reservation. I pulled it up, and there it was. My name. My address. My social security number, partially visible in the last 4 digits. The signature itself was close. It wasn't right. The L curved differently. The H was too tall. But it was close enough that a hotel manager processing a routine room block wouldn't have looked twice. Dad, I said, who filled out the resort reservation? Silence. Dad, your brother wanted everything to be perfect, he said very quietly. He didn't have the credit limit. He said you never use yours. He said you'd understand once you saw how beautiful it was. We were going to tell you after the honeymoon. Serena's family was supposed to cover the resort costs at checkout. Her father said he opened a credit card in my name, I said. It didn't come out as a question. Laurie, he used my social security number and my address and my credit history to open a $30,000 credit line and then used it to book a luxury resort for a wedding I wasn't even invited to participate in. I stopped. And now Serena's family is gone, and there is $28,000 charged to a card I never applied for, and the resort wants $42,000 by morning. If you just authorize the charge, my dad started, the resort will settle it and we can figure out the rest when. Authorize it. I said the words back to him slowly. You want me to authorize a fraudulent charge on a fraudulent account to cover a debt incurred by identity theft. We are your family. His voice shifted. I had heard this shift before, the desperation becoming something harder, something with an edge. Your brother made a mistake in judgment, yes, but he is your blood and he is sitting in a hotel lobby in Arizona right now watching his marriage fall apart, and if you do not help him tonight, you are not the daughter I raised. I heard my mother grab the phone. Laura. Her voice was different from my dad's. It wasn't desperate, it was calculating. Listen to me carefully. The reservation contract has your name on it. Your social security number is in the resort system. If we don't pay that bill by 11 a.m., the resort files a collections claim against the cardholder of record. That is you. That goes on your credit. That affects your CPA license renewal. I know how this works. Your father and I have thought about this. There it was. Not a cry for help, a threat. You've thought about this, I repeated. We needed you involved because you're the only one in this family with good credit. And yes, now you are involved. So you can either pay the bill, and we all go home and we never speak of this again, or you let it go to collections and you explain to your licensing board why there's a $42,000 fraud claim attached to your name. Your choice. I sat in the silence of my apartment for a long moment. My refrigerator hummed. A car passed on the street outside. My hands had stopped shaking and something else had taken over. Something that felt like clarity, cold and total. They thought they had me. They had engineered this whole situation assuming that my fear of professional consequences, my instinct to protect my credit, my lifelong pattern of cleaning up their messes would kick in and I would open my wallet one last time. They had done the math on my psychology and decided I was still the same person I'd been at 22, wiring money from my first real paycheck to cover my dad's overdraft. But I was a forensic accountant. My entire job was untangling fraud. And the first rule of fraud response is, do not touch the money. Put the manager on the phone, I said. What? My mother's voice sharpened. Why? Because I'm not talking to you anymore tonight. Put the resort manager on the phone or I hang up. There was shuffling, muffled arguing. Then a professional, cautious voice. This is Daniel Forsyth, Guest Services Director at Copper Canyon. Am I speaking with Laura Hafford? You are, I said. Mr. Forsyth, I need you to understand something before we go any further. I am currently in Columbus, Ohio. I have not been to Arizona in 14 months. I did not apply for the credit card on file with your resort. I did not sign the room block guarantee. I am looking at my credit monitoring account right now, and I can see that these accounts were opened without my knowledge or consent approximately 47 days ago from an IP address that is not mine. Silence on his end. I am telling you this now on a recorded line, so that your property has documentation of this conversation. I am not authorizing any charges. I am not responsible for this debt. I am contacting the fraud division of First Western Bank tonight, and I will be filing a report with the FTC and the Dayton Police Department first thing in the morning. Ms. Harford, he said carefully, I understand. We will need to document this conversation and we will be in contact with our legal department. Thank you. And Mr. Forsyth, whatever my family members have told you about my authorization of these charges is false. Please note that as well. Noted, he said. I heard my mother start screaming before the phone even switched back to her. You just signed your brother's death warrant, do you know that? He's going to have a criminal record because of you. The resort is going to press charges against him for the damage. What damage? I said sharply. A beat too long of silence. Mom, what damage? My dad came back on. His voice was very low. There was an incident in the bridal suite when your brother realized Serena wasn't coming back. There were some things broken. A mirror. Part of the wet bar. The resort is adding it to the bill. I closed my eyes. My brother had destroyed a hotel room in a resort booked under my name, with a credit card opened using my identity. Call the embassy, I said. Call a lawyer. I can't help you. Laurie, please, I love my brother, I said, and I meant it, and it cost me something to say it. But I cannot be the person who makes this okay. Not this time. I hung up. I didn't sit and cry. I didn't stare at the wall. I had maybe 90 minutes before the fraud division's overnight line got busy. So I opened a new document, started a timeline, and began pulling together everything I had: the credit inquiry dates, the IP address, the signature on the guarantee form, the account opening details. I wrote it out the way I write everything professionally: clean, chronological, documented. Then I called First Western Bank's fraud line and spent 40 minutes on the phone with a specialist named Veronica, who was calm and thorough and treated me like a competent adult, which I needed more than I can explain. She flagged both the credit application and a full card balance as fraudulent, initiated a dispute, and told me the account would be frozen within the hour. She walked me through placing a freeze at all 3 credit bureaus, which I did while still on the phone with her. By the time I was done, it was 4:23 a.m., and my phone had received 41 more text messages, which I did not read. My aunt had apparently been recruited. Then my brother's college roommate, for reasons I still don't understand. Then 2 cousins who lived in Florida and had not spoken to me in 3 years, but had opinions about my choices at 4 in the morning. The messages came in waves: first guilt, then anger, then bargaining, then something that was almost threatening. You think your job protects you? Family is the only thing that matters. You'll regret this when mom gets sick. You'll die alone. I read exactly enough to understand the pattern, and then I opened my contacts and blocked every number that had texted me in the last 2 hours. My mother, my father, my brother, my aunt, the 2 cousins, the college roommate. I blocked them methodically, the way I reconcile accounts. One at a time, no skipping, no second guessing. The FTC fraud report took 20 minutes to file online. I uploaded the credit inquiry screenshots, the guarantee form with the forged signature, and the time-stamped log from my credit monitoring service showing the account had been opened while I was at work on a Wednesday in April. I noted that the applicant had used my SSN and my parents' address and had submitted the application from their home network. I also drafted a brief email to my firm's HR contact, flagging that I might need to provide documentation regarding a personal identity theft case that could generate inquiries. I didn't want anyone at work to be surprised. That's how I operate. No surprises. Then I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table as the sky outside my window went from black to grey to a pale, uncertain blue. My phone was silent. The blocking had made the silence complete. A sudden absence of noise that felt almost physical, like pressure releasing. I had not felt silence like that from my family since before I could remember. There had always been something: a text, a request, a guilt trip delivered as an afterthought in a call about something else, something that needed fixing, funding, or forgiveness. The silence felt like the first clean breath of air after a long time underwater. About 3 weeks later, I got a single email from my brother from an address I didn't recognize. He must have realized I'd blocked his usual contact. He didn't ask for anything. He just said that the resort had worked with their insurance on the property damage and that the fraud case had been referred to local authorities in Dayton. He said he knew he had no right to ask me anything. He said he was sorry. He did not say he would pay me back. He did not say when or whether we would speak again. He just said he was sorry. I read it twice and then saved it to a folder I labeled with the date and closed my laptop. The credit card was fully reversed within 60 days. The fraud case was picked up by the Dayton PD and later referred to the state AG's office because using someone's SSN to open a credit line crosses into felony identity theft territory in Ohio regardless of who the person is to you. I was told by the detective handling the case that family relationship is not a defense. I already knew that professionally. It's different to hear it said out loud about your own family. My CPA license came up for renewal 4 months after that night, and I renewed it without incident, without explanation, without a collections claim attached to my name. My credit score dropped 11 points from the hard inquiry and recovered completely within 6 months. I still live in the same apartment in Columbus. I still eat leftover takeout on Tuesday nights. I still do my best work between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., which is when the office is quiet and the numbers cooperate. I don't have a relationship with my parents or my brother right now. I don't know if I ever will again. There are days when that sits fine, and days when it lands like a stone. I don't think the grief is something I get to skip. I just don't confuse grief for owing someone something. Those are two different things, and I spent a long time mixing them up. The last thing I did before I went to sleep that morning, after the fraud report was filed and the accounts were frozen and the sun had fully come up over Columbus, was make myself a real breakfast. Eggs and toast. I sat at my kitchen table and ate it slowly and didn't look at my phone. It was the first meal in years that I paid for entirely with my own money, for only myself, with no one waiting on the other end for me to send the receipt. It tasted like something I haven't had in a long time. I'm still trying to find the word for it. There's a specific kind of exhaustion that comes not from working too hard, but from carrying people who never once asked if you were getting tired. I know what that feels like. I lived inside it for years without having a name for it. What happened that night in Sedona didn't come out of nowhere. It was the end of a very long line of smaller moments. Every, "Can you cover this just for now?" Every, "You're the responsible one," every time my name was the answer to a problem I hadn't caused. My brother didn't wake up one morning and decide to commit fraud. He woke up one morning having learned over a lifetime that my name was available, that I would absorb the consequence, that I would find a way to make it okay. That's not a character flaw he was born with. That's a pattern the whole family built together slowly over decades, one small ask at a time. And I was part of building it too, because I kept saying yes. What I did that night, calling the fraud line, filing the FTC report, freezing my credit, blocking every number that came after me, none of it felt brave in the moment. It felt like doing my job. That's the thing about building real competence in something. When the crisis hits, you don't have to feel brave. You just have to know the next step. I knew the next step. That knowledge was the only thing standing between me and a $42,000 debt I never agreed to carry. But the part that took something out of me wasn't the paperwork. It was the clarity. Understanding that my mother had thought it through. That she had mapped out my fears, my credit, my license, my professional reputation, and had decided those fears were leverage. That's not a misunderstanding between family members. That's a calculation. And when someone calculates how to use your vulnerabilities against you, the only honest response is to stop pretending the relationship is something it isn't. I think about integrity a lot differently now than I did before that night. For a long time, I thought being a good person meant absorbing other people's problems. I thought that's what love looked like, self-erasure in service of the people closest to you. What I understand now is that genuine integrity means being honest about what's actually happening, even when the truth is uncomfortable for everyone in the room. My brother committed identity theft. My mother threatened me. Those are facts. Calling them something softer wouldn't have made them less true. It would have just made me complicit in the fiction. The credit score recovered, the license renewed without a mark on it. The fraud case moved forward on its own timeline, without me having to manage it. The things I was afraid of losing turned out to be more durable than I'd given them credit for. What I lost instead was a version of myself that had spent 30-some years believing that being needed was the same as being loved. I'm still working on figuring out what I actually want, now that I'm not spending so much energy on what everyone else needs from me. That's slower work. It doesn't have a fraud hotline or a 60-day resolution timeline, but I'm doing it one Tuesday night at a time in a quiet apartment that is entirely uncomplicated mine.